On this episode of Conspiracy List.
Anal probing, it gets a bad rap, and it's kind of fun.
Like, why would anyone ever go to Roswell, New Mexico?
The Nazi doctor, come on, you know it. It's Debbie.
And next thing I know, my butthole's hurting. Spaceman.
Right. But on an alien anal probing, it's more of just, it's like a wild night. Whoa, what's going on YouTube? We are back with another drug-enabling, high-performance, athletic, perfectly legal drug.
Yeah, supplement. It's a supplement.
It's a supplement. You can get it at
Right,
GNC, which stands for Girls Not
Coming. That's the thing we don't talk about. It's an unfair advantage that they get because
imagine
it's really easy to identify the tip of a penis. It's very hard to find a clitoris
unless you're in our penis tips don't look like other penis tips city, because in that city they're not easily identifiable.
Right, because they look like other things, like perhaps
other things.
A zipper to your jeans, maybe corn on the cob, mouse pad.
Could be mouse
maybe
pad.
even a mouse trap, cheese and all.
Has anyone on planet Earth actually played a game of mousetrap start to finish?
No.
You don't think there's one group of people that sat down? You know what? Let's do it and record it. We have to hold ourselves. We have to play by the rules 100%.
Okay. No,
it's probably like way easier than it seems, and we were just little and didn't want to put the shit together.
Yeah, I think I always gave up at the setting it up phase. I was like, oh, work goes into this? Ugh.
But even still, like, don't you like go around a board and collect pieces of cardboard cheese and shit?
Honestly, I don't know. I think I looked at it and said, I'm not playing that. And
I'm going to build the trap, I'm going to watch the trap, and then I'm going to put it away.
Yeah, can we do anything? We have Smash Bros, right? On some it's some iteration of it. Let's just do that instead. Yeah, no, I don't think I've ever played a game of Mousetrap past opening the box.
And this is me completely out of pocket here. I wonder if there's a way to combine Mousetrap in D&D.
Like the dungeon
Mousetrap campaign
is the Mousetrap.
A Mousetrap campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I know next to nothing about D&D, so I think it could. I
think you can make that work. Welcome back.
Oof, man, that might be our worst. That might be our longest. We're almost at 10 minutes here, man.
What is this podcast about?
We've been gone for too long. Sorry, I was abducted by aliens.
These guys took 2 weeks off. And they come back and they're talking about Michael Bublé? Yes, correct.
Yeah, so where were we these last 2 weeks? Getting anally probed by aliens. We were abducted, and we now come down with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Today on Conspiracy Realist, we're going to be talking about how anal probing gets a bad rap, and it's kind of fun.
When you consider it against the other forms of probing, which is...
Right.
The only other one they've discovered is removing your brain and scanning it, which is pretty brutal because you literally die.
Right. But on an alien anal probing, it's more of just the... It's like a wild night, but also for science. All right. So on the if you're a new time listener, hi. If you're someone who's listened to some of them before, you know, we've danced around aliens on the podcast before, but never really did aliens. You know what I mean? Like Anunnaki, I don't think. I don't think you can really classify the truthism Anunnaki thing as alien. So other than that, the closest thing was the unidentified sound that Ohio researchers found that could have been an alien signal potentially.
Yeah, and even then, that was like super vague.
Yeah. So this is the mothership of all alien conspiracies. So I figured, what better one to start with in our journeys of now adding aliens to the list of things that we talk about than the UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico.
I've been so excited for this one.
You know, it's one of those things. It's so infamous, but when I looked more into it, it's very interesting what the actual story is behind it and what implications it leaves. Because I feel like everybody knows it's a household name, the Roswell, New Mexico alien crash. But if you ask an average person to elaborate that isn't like into conspiracies,
yeah, the answer kind of just becomes like, oh, Roswell. It's Roswell.
Yeah, alien
right,
crash,
yeah.
whatever.
Aliens, Roswell, of course.
Yeah,
but no,
yeah.
like, okay, but what happened?
Something did happen.
Obviously, yeah,
but it's just like there was factual things that it wasn't just like we made up that aliens crashed. Like there was an event.
Right. And I don't know anything about Roswell as a city.
Yeah, as far as New Mexico
Or
goes, I know
township.
Albuquerque, and that's as far as
my knowledge of New Mexico is strictly limited to the events of High School Musical 2.
That's fair.
Or I guess High School Musical 1 also, because I think their high school was based in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Right, so in summer break they're still in.
That's about the extent of what I know about New Mexico, though.
Yeah, I'd say I'm right with you. That and whatever Breaking Bad told me, which that's a heightened reality anyways.
Right. And also, I guess, I always thought Roswell was elsewhere, I think. I always, like, put it near Nevada and Arizona.
Yeah, because you think desert crash, Area 51. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Roswell, New Mexico is a very desolate area like that.
Right. But it's a different desolate area than the other desolate areas.
But yeah, it's like it's very much like those. At least from a lot of the pictures I'm seeing, probably on a main stretch of road here, and not all of Roswell, obviously. It literally looks like those long shots in Breaking Bad with the brush and the yellow grass, and you know what I mean.
The tumbleweed rolls by.
Yeah, it's that kind of perfect for a little alien story, really.
Yeah,
really, what it was like many things that conspiracies that we end up talking about, and honestly, what I'm coming to find is the majority of the popular ones have some way, shape, or form deal with the Cold War.
Yeah, that seemed to be a big time where people were just.
It makes sense though. Because
it's
so much weird shit was going on. Because I feel like people were obviously I can only speak from what I am observing through base level knowledge of history. But 2 world wars had happened. I think people were done doing that for a little bit, so they were finding other ways to with each other.
Well, and then we invented nukes, and it was like, well, we can't just launch them.
Yeah,
so
if you do this, it's the end.
So it was like, all right, so what else can we do? I guess we could pretend little gray men are invading the whatever. It's funny because I restarted Destroy All Humans again because it came out.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Yeah, and it was just like the 2 options every time someone freaks out, or they go, little green men, or they go, communists, and it's like, that's like unfortunately pretty accurate. That was probably the reaction. They saw a UFO and they were like, oh my god, aliens, or they were like, goddamn Russians.
And it makes sense because of all the spy planes and shit with the space race and everything too. What else is out there? And aliens became a huge craze. Movies, pop culture ate it up.
Yeah, you have this weird confluence of sci-fi authors like H.G. Wells writing The War of the Worlds at the same time that you had all these big abduction stories hitting the news, and it was a weird combination of all these things just coalescing at once that had to have been kicked off somewhere, and presumably that would be what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and this was 1947, so I mean,
so we're fresh out of World War II.
Yeah, and this is sort of the beginning times of the quote-unquote Cold War. And in that summer of 1947, U.S. Army Air Forces had to have a whole press release with it to, talk about what it was. Since word had been getting around, they had to actually say something about it. So they announced they recovered a flying disc from a ranch near Roswell. So it actually wasn't like in Roswell. It was in a large farm ranch area near Roswell. Now, I mean, Roswell itself, I mean, I guess since Roswell's the closest town, it's still Roswell. Because, I mean, the town itself now has the UFO Museum and Research Center. They have that flying saucer-themed McDonald's. They got streetlights. They have those statues of the alien family stranded on a broken-down UFO on the side of State Route 285. Just, like, a bunch of different... Like, if you watch, like, a documentary on, like, New Mexico, like, they'll show you all this shit. It's just kind of, you know, it's tourist trap shit because of the story. Which is just interesting that it took on such a life to be like a defining characteristic of that city. You're the alien city.
I think they actually renamed the highway where Roswell was Extraterrestrial Highway or something along those lines.
Yeah, like they're just milking it.
God, no one wants to come. I mean, like, why would anyone ever go to Roswell, New Mexico, other than to see?
Right. Yeah.
UFO
I mean,
stuff.
None of us would even probably know unless you lived in the state or the area what Roswell even is.
For something that should be kept under wraps, they're very open about it.
Well, it is interesting that Roswell was kind of coined as the wreckage happened on a large farmland in Lincoln County, New Mexico, which is roughly 75 miles north of Roswell.
Oh, so that's not close.
But I guess in the grand scheme of things, that's close enough.
It's over an hour away, so I wouldn't...
Yeah, I consider that a completely different area. Yeah.
But sure.
And apparently that summer there had been other reports of flying discs or saucers that actually made national news that same summer, which I guess that is what led the rancher to think that the wreckage, which was quoted as including tinfoil, rubber pieces, and thick paper, might be something of the alien nature. So when that crashed, he brought some of the material to the sheriff of Roswell, which I guess is why Roswell, because I guess like the nearest actual like civilization was.
It was just
Roswell.
Farmland, and then there was Roswell, the city.
Roswell, 75 miles south.
which was at least 4 buildings. So they were like, "Oh boy, that's a city if I had ever seen one."
This gets into some. The story is actually pretty convoluted with like military chain of command and whatnot, because rancher brings it to the sheriff of Roswell, who brings it to the commander of the Roswell Army Airfield. And so they have the RAAF, the Roswell Army Airfield, now has possession of it from the sheriff, from the rancher. And they jumped the gun. They released a statement the following day saying, "The many rumors regarding the flying disc became a reality yesterday when the intelligence office of the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force, Roswell Army Airfield, was fortunate enough to gain possession of a disc through the cooperation of one of the local ranchers and the sheriff's office of Chavez."
That's a statement the government released? The next day?
The next day. And then the next day, the day after that, they took back the flying saucer claim and instead said that the debris was just from a weather balloon and released pictures of an intelligence officer with the pieces of the weather balloon as the quote-unquote proof. Major Jesse A. Marcel was the only one who was mainly in possession of the debris and who had released a lot of the press info on it. He was like the guy that the press job fell onto because he had possession of it. This guy, Marcel. So if that wasn't suspicious enough...
And the crazy thing is like, I feel like in the modern day, the government would have to jump on something like that. They'd be like, look, like you'd see it from like the @CIA Twitter account where they'd be like, not a UFO, just a weather balloon.
So it was like that, but in the paper because it was the late 40s.
Which is so weird because it's like news didn't travel instantaneously. You could have had people sit on that for a few days, been like, hey, well, hold on.
I feel like people were so freaked out at the time, too, from Russia that they felt like they probably had to. You know, Red Scare and all that. It seems like people bought it, I guess. I mean, obviously there were conspiracies and people that, you know, talked about it at the time, but it was kind of like you either thought it was aliens or thought it was a weather balloon, and everyone went on with their lives until 1994. So, geez, how many years is that from 47 to 94?
47 years.
So, yeah. So almost 50 years later, the U.S. Air Force finally admits the weather balloon story was phony, and the wreckage was actually from a spy device created for Project Mogul, which was classified at the time, so they couldn't talk about it. So that's convenient.
Oh, those MIB bastards.
What they explained what Project Mogul was a connected string of high-altitude balloons that had microphones. It was supposed to float over the USSR and pick up sound waves at a distance. So their explanation for lying about the weather balloon was because Project Mogul was a covert operation, and it was necessary to keep it under wraps at the time, which is so convenient.
Oh, I'm sure. And they could also say we f***ing made fox-shaped balloons to scare the Japanese. 'Cause apparently balloons were all the rage for the government at the time. They f***ing loved balloons. They were all about it. Everything involved balloons.
Yeah, there's a lot of balloonage going on. When did Balloon Fighter for the NES come out?
Well, guess sometime in the 80s.
1984.
That's a bad year for that to come out. 1984?
1984.
Very Orwellian.
Balloon Fighter. NES.
Wow. Hey,
one of the greatest games of all time.
Read into that what you will.
It's actually kind of a fun game. I have it on the Switch NES library.
I actually don't think I've played it, but I might.
It's worth it's a silly little game. Anyways, one of the main things about Roswell 2 with the alien crash is that, you know, when you hear about conspiracies involving it and you hear the like generalized stories about it, people are always talking about alien bodies, or there was an alien body recovered, which in the actual story and the press release, nothing of the sort was even remotely disclosed. But apparently people that lived in the area, the eyewitnesses, so to say, which is strange because I thought just the rancher was the only guy who was there, but apparently there are other eyewitnesses that at the time of the crash claimed that there were alien bodies taken from the site.
Oh, like they paraded them through town, and they were like, wow, look what we found on our damn farms.
Yeah, a bunch of aliens. I don't think you should put them in a box like that.
Sorry to the people of Roswell, New Mexico. I know you don't all speak like that. Some of you are probably of, well, more
medium intelligence,
more sophisticated descent.
Well, that's on the ranch too.
Yee-hoo.
So I just think it's funny that to respond to the claims of alien bodies, an official report in 1997 that was explained by the government that those alien bodies that people claimed to have saw were fallen parachute test dummies. That leaves me with a few questions, because initially it was said, again, that only one rancher found some pieces of the wreckage, and now they're saying there were more people there, and even took it another step to explain why they would have seen bodies when they didn't have to respond to that at all.
You're right, because the government, Roswell's a pretty small area. They could have just been like, there were no bodies. For them to, 50 years later be like, well, those were test dummies, and why do your test dummies look like alien grays? Why don't they just look like humans?
I don't know if that's true, but that's from the same article I read on history.com. So
I'm just trying to imagine the government being like, all right, Sarge, do you want to, so we're going to test these parachutes. We're going to test these balloons. We were thinking about making the dummies about 5'10" with fairly accurate human proportions. We might be off by a few pounds here or there, but nothing's just going to throw off our calculations. It's like, what if we made him 3'11"? His head is 2 feet big, and his skin is gray and leathery. Why would we do that? Why wouldn't we just roll with what you? I'm just curious to see what a 4'11" slimy gray motherfucker might land like. Like, is there something you want to talk about?
Look in my ass. I got probed.
That is absolutely just a dildo.
Oh.
That is just a regular human dildo, sir.
You're going to say it's fucking aliens, or you'll never work in this town again.
All right, that is an alien probe. I'm so sorry we didn't notice that at first.
That's how it went, boys and girls.
That's how it went. That's how most presidential elections ended also. But okay. So,
a guy named Donald Schmidt, he was a UFO researcher Donald Schmidt, he's a UFO researcher. Schmitty. Mr. Schmidt. He spent nearly 3 decades investigating the Roswell incident, and he is actually the co-founder of the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell. He says the flying saucer story was so ostentatious that...
Hey. What?
He was basically saying it was bound to draw attention to the area because it had military operations going on at the time. He says 2 hours west of Roswell, the first atomic bomb was detonated. You had ongoing atomic research at Los Alamos. You had all this testing of captured German V-2 rockets at the White Sands. And at Roswell, you had the first atomic bomb squadron headquartered. The thought that they would have intentionally set up any type of publicity as a distraction, if anything, they needed less attention. So he was saying it wasn't the government trying to, start something or get a rise out of people or scare people because that would have been counterproductive to their interests at the time.
But also, that sounds like a very government thing to say.
Right. There's that theory that it was like a Red Scare thing on purpose was mostly talked about in the book Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base.
Hell yeah, brother.
It's saying that the crashed flying saucer was neither extraterrestrial nor the work of U.S. spies. Rather, it was an unconventional plan to induce widespread American panic implemented by Soviet strongman Joseph Stalin.
Of all the places. I'm not a fan of the government, nor am I a fan of the Russian government, because by proxy. But if I was a Russian government official and I was going to startle America, I wouldn't send a UFO to New Mexico. I'd send it to, like, New York City or Los Angeles or, like, one of the big places.
The biggins.
You wouldn't just be like, fucking send it to the desert, brother, where the farmers are fucking stupid. Like, no, you send it somewhere where people are going to see it.
I mean, I guess you could argue that it's the perfect place to send it. Either way, that's just one of those that's one of those out there theories.
We've got indoor theories. We've got outdoor
theories. We kind of have a hybrid.
You've got theories you could talk about over a drink around your kitchen island with your marble countertops.
Mm-hmm. Gotta be.
And those are your normal theories. Those are your Bigfoot, your
everyday,
your
run of the mill,
day to day. But then every now and then the boys want a cigar, and when the boys want a cigar, that means we're gonna get into the niche shit.
Friend soup. You get in a hot tub, you get a cigar, you get so fucking dehydrated, you don't even care. That's an outdoor.
that's when you get outdoor.
So on that note, actually, I have an unnamed source who worked as an engineer at Area 51 for the defense contractor EG&G, told that book's author Annie Jacobson, a veteran national security journalist and Pulitzer Prize nominee, that the program had been designed by Nazi concentration camp doctor.
Oh boy,
you know the one, the Nazi doctor. Come on, you know it.
This is gonna look so bad for me.
Well, it's looking worse for me because I know it, but I don't know how to pronounce it. So I wanted you to say it.
Is it Heinrich Maneuver?
No, it's Debbie.
Oh, just
Joseph
Debbie.
Joseph Mengele. Mengele.
Oh, Joseph Mengele.
Mengele.
Is it?
I never knew how to say it.
Is it Mengele? It might be Mengele.
How to pronounce Mengele? Oh yeah, I got a fucking 30-second video of how to pronounce it, and there's an ad. Mengele. Rewind. Annie Jacobson said that the unnamed source told her that the program had been designed by Nazi concentration camp doctor Joseph Mengele. According to the source, adolescent children were deformed by the Soviets to resemble aliens and then deployed in the aircraft to fly over New Mexico. And according to this book as well, Stalin's plan was for the children to climb out and be mistaken for visitors from Mars, and panic would ensue, and America's early warning radar system would be overwhelmed with sightings of other UFOs.
Oh, so not only were they just putting people in fake UFOs, they were putting children in them.
It's if it was Joseph Stalin's big master plan, according to this crazy person, yes.
God, that's just so
It's so convoluted. I've
never heard that.
Well, no, because I was like, it's one thing with the theories about our government and, aliens, but the Soviet Nazi collaboration story is, I was happy to find that. We got to find this book.
We talk about the up shit we did during this Cold War, but the Soviets were doing equally, if not more, f***ed up stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess throwing a big-ass alien head on a kid and saying, get out there.
It's just crazy that theory is written in a book by Annie Jacobson, who was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. He was a good writer. And I guess that theory could go some way in explaining the wreckage described by Major Marcel. His son, Marcel Jr., he wrote a book called The Roswell Legacy.
Phenomenal.
And he said in that book that his father brought some of the UFO wreckage home, allowing him to handle the debris before it was then taken back to the base. So Marcel Jr. wrote that it was metallic and, in quote, I could see what looked like writing. At first I thought Egyptian hieroglyphics, but there were no animal outlines or figures. They weren't mathematical figures either. They were more like geometric symbols, squares, circles, triangles, pyramids, and the like. Marcel Jr. was 11 years old at the time, the Cold War only just beginning, and it just like, did he see writing on this shit? Was he just saying that to make money? So he wrote a book like, oh yeah, that was my dad. I was 11 and he brought some of it home. Yeah. There were dummies, then there weren't, then it was a saucer, then it was a weather balloon, then it was fucking symbols on it. Like, that's why this case is so fucking infamous, because nobody could get their shit straight on it, which just makes it so sketchy.
Oh yeah, there was an alien, or there wasn't an alien, or there were two aliens. Or sorry, there were none, and there was a crash. No, there wasn't. It was just a weather balloon, and I didn't see anything, but I saw everything.
It's also worth noting, in 1995, there was film footage showing this alien autopsy that was reportedly taken by a U.S. military official shortly after the Roswell incident was released. And released by a guy named Ray Santilli, and he was a London-based video entrepreneur, says Wikipedia. The footage caused an international sensation when it aired on television networks, and then Santilli admitted in 2006 that the film was mostly a reconstruction, but it was based on genuine footage that's now lost, and there were some original frames that were in there that supposedly survived.
Naturally,
right?
Yeah. So it was, he had it, but he lost it.
So that was a recreation, but some of the frames of that recreation,
a few frames. 1 second of video is one frame of 24, but a couple of those are real.
Have we keep those and lose the rest? Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions. You don't know what you're talking about.
There's an actual interesting book here that I have some passages from. This guy, Carl Flock, he wrote a book called Roswell, Inconvenient Facts and the Will to Believe. And I'm going to read this passage straight from it. He says, the case for Roswell is a classic example of the triumph of quantity over quality. The advocates of the crash saucer tale simply shovel everything that seems to support their view into the box marked evidence and say, see, look at all this stuff. We must be right. Never mind the contradictions. Never mind the lack of independent supporting facts. Never mind the blatant absurdities. He says the UFO field is comprised of people who are willing to take advantage of the gullibility of others, especially the paying public. Let's not pull any punches here. The Roswell UFO myth has been very good business for UFO groups, publishers, for Hollywood, the town of Roswell, the media, and UFOlogy. The number of researchers who employ science and its discipline and methodology is appallingly small.
Condescending and rude. Who is he to act like science is superior to pseudoscience?
We
outlandish.
Are pseudoscientists here on Conspiracy Radio.
Outlandish is what I would say about that. Those claims. Pseudoscience is just as real as science, and don't look up the definition of the term pseudo, because it just means very real science.
He really Flock. He went into it. He noted that of these 300 plus individuals reportedly interviewed for UFO crash at Roswell in 1991, only 41 can be considered genuine first or second-hand witnesses, and only 23 can be reasonably thought to have seen physical evidence like the debris. Of these, only 7 have asserted anything suggestive of otherworldly origins for the debris. I don't know why he's on a crusade to disprove this.
For real.
And Marcel, the guy who found it, said the material may have looked like tinfoil and balsa wood, but the resemblance ended there. They took one picture of me on the floor holding up some of the less interesting metallic debris. The stuff in that one photo was pieces of the actual stuff we found. It was not a staged photo. Timothy Printy points out that the material Marcel positively identified as being part of what he recovered is material that skeptics and UFO advocates agree is debris from a balloon device. And after that fact was pointed out to him, Marcel changed his story to say that the material was not what he recovered. So skeptics like Robert Todd argued that Marcel had a history of embellishment and exaggeration, such as claiming to have been a pilot and having received 5 air medals for shooting down enemy planes, and they were claims that all found to be false, and skeptics feel that his sort of evolving Roswell story was simply another instance of his tendency to fabricate. So he kind of had a history of it.
On one hand, not surprising that somebody would lie about their government involvement. On the other hand, not impossible that the government could change records. Because you could say, oh, we have a government record showing this guy joined this branch of the military, did these things, and then quit. But also, do we trust the government to not have changed those records?
Right. It basically all leads back to nothing but inconclusive, and it's sus.
It's pretty
sus. Sus. No matter how you slice it, simple explanations aside, something's not right there.
It is funny that Roswell is like the quintessential alien UFO case, and 85% of it has nothing to do with aliens.
Yeah.
It's just like, shit, something fell in the desert, and the government is kind of weird about it. But beyond that...
Yeah. Could have been aliens, could have been bodies, didn't want to disclose it. Maybe it was Project Mogul, maybe it was a weather balloon. But why were they so weird about it?
Right. It's weird that they were weird, but at the same time, like, other alien cases have happened where people were blatantly like... Yep, y'all know the aliens, they took me on up in their flying saucer. They stuck a metallic claw up my butthole. And I'm not gonna lie, it didn't feel terrible. But then when I got dropped down on back on my damn farm, all my damn dear cows were dead. I found out I'd been gone for 6 weeks. Thought it had been 6 minutes.
You really don't like farmers. It's just you're painting them as brain dead.
It just seems like farmers get abducted.
They're the backbone of America. You wouldn't be able to eat your food.
It feels like they get abducted more than anyone else. No one on Wall Street is coming out being like, oh, yeah, I put $38 billion into crypto, and then I saw the bright lights, and next thing I know, I'm in my Manhattan apartment, 38th floor, overlooking Broadway and 5th, thank you, and all of a sudden, I had a glass of champagne in my hand, and I don't even remember getting there. It's always like, yeah, well, my wife, Betty Lou, she, well, she cussed at the black boy next door, and she might have said a few choice words, but we won't bear repeating here. And all of a sudden, there was a bright light up in the air, and next thing I know, my butthole's hurting. I'm lying in bed, and I don't know if it's Betty Lou enacting on her female liberties or Spaceman.
All right, that's fair. You won me.
It just seems like the vast majority of these cases happen to be folk who might not have pursued secondary education. They might have remained isolated. They might only get one newspaper.
You're not saying it's farmers. It's these people that have told
aliens. Right. Just in my experience of reading aliens abduction stories, it's never been an educated urban person or even suburban. It tends to be rural. It tends to be people who have not pursued education. And it just begs the question, look, if you were an alien and you went to a different planet and you wanted to learn about the predominant species there, would you abduct, the bumpkins, or would you abduct the average folk who might?
Well, I have a couple answers to that, to go down this hole. One, it might be easier to take the bumpkins.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely, it's easier. Yeah, for sure.
Two, they might just view all humans like cattle and not even see a substantial difference between a bumpkin and a city boy.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, it's hard to say.
I guess I just like to think that maybe aliens would take a more equivalent approach. They'd want to span the social spectrum there. They'd be like,
we'll take a couple bumpkins, we'll take a couple Wall Street bankers, pick up a few people from the PTA meeting, combine them all. We'll get a good sample group here.
We're picking up on a few choice themes. I'm just worried that their research might have inevitably led to intergalactic war, where they're like, well, these people suck, they're very racist, and they all voted for Donald Trump. And it's like, hey, not all of us. You don't hear about that many UFOs landing in other parts of the world either, which I think is interesting. You get a lot of Midwestern, Southern United States, but you don't get a lot of European, Asian, South American UFO cases that make major headline news. They're not all going to land in the United States of America. So that also, I think, detracts from the credibility of this. It's like, oh, it took 4,000 years and they decided to land in Roswell, New Mexico, of all places.
I don't know the amount of UFO sightings in other countries, or really about many other UFO, like big ones that have been documented at all. Really, I knew little about Roswell, and now I know a little bit more about the Roswell incident. But as far as other ones go, I don't know for sure what the generalistics of them are.
Yeah, which I guess
location.
Yeah, I guess that plays a big part into it. I just think of even like going back and saying like, oh, did aliens help the Egyptians build the pyramids? And whether or not you stand on that point, it's like, oh, that's probably the first place they'd check. They'd pop off for a few hundred years, come back and be like, how are those pyramids going? They wouldn't just land in Roswell, New Mexico, and be like,
in a tiny disc,
right,
that may or may not have had beings in it, crash dummies, weather balloons. Get your fucking story straight.
As much as I like to hashtag believe, there are just maybe too many inconsistencies with the Roswell story that I can't quite get behind it.
Yeah, it almost makes it. It doesn't almost. It completely makes it almost even a null point, because it's just like there's no. I know every conspiracy is inconclusive, but this one's really like.
Yeah, no, it's rough. It is rough. It even, again, as a believer of aliens, where I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely, there are other living species out there. Maybe not.
That's not the one that does.
Yeah, maybe not greys that came to Earth and crash landed in the fucking New Mexico desert, but like, Roswell's a rough one. That's a rough sell. So I guess that is our conclusion on this episode
of Pickle Dicks.
Dicks. Welcome on down. We have actually rebranded. We are now called Dickle Picks, the one-stop shop.
Dick Hole
Picks, the one-stop shop for pickles in the Pennsylvania tri-state area. And if you're looking for the freshest pill dickles, congratulations, you found your place. And if you're looking for quality podcasting might I recommend National Public Radio, NPR, for those unfamiliar, and also our podcast, because we can exist in a dichotomy. Two things can be true. So, welcome to Conspiracy Realists. You know, a lot of effort goes into making this show. It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like we're kind of just... Surprisingly. It does. It sounds like we're kind of just fumbling our way through, but there is actually... You know, we do our research, and there is a good bit that goes into the editing and the marketing, and frankly, it's gotten to be a bit much. So, if you enjoy the show, if you want to support the production of the show, I might want to recommend that you go to patreon.com/conspiracy realists and commit to the $3 tier to continue the production of this show. And if you want to commit to the $5 tier, you might even unlock some special bonus episodes of Conspiracy Realists where we talk uncensored, unfiltered about the truth. Unhinged. Just absolutely mad f***ing episodes that you guys on the main feed don't get to hear. And if you want to spend even more money, if you're just a f***ing loaded son of a bitch, you could contribute to the $10 tier and you actually get a sticker of our newly redesigned logo. And you can slap that bad boy on your laptop. And then other people will say, hey, what's that? And you'll say, oh, that's the Conspiracy Realist logo. I listen to this podcast. And basically, it's free advertising for us, and it's a sticker for you. So I would personally recommend going with that tier, but I understand if you want to go for a lower one. So check it out.
Another thing, if you are a psychopath and do the $10 one for some reason, I will give you a private video of me reviewing pictures of ducks.
He will. All the pictures of ducks that Nick has collected since we first introduced the ducks.
I'll give you a top 10. I'll give you a top 10.
They're good. They are phenomenal pictures of ducks.
You don't think that doesn't sound good? It's better than the podcast.
You'd be surprised. Donate. F*** you. Donate. But anyway, there's the music.
I love you. Bye.
Checkmate. Bitch.
Biatch.